Hi, thanks so much for coming. My name's Steve Gravestock, and I'm the Senior International Programmer for Canada and the Nordic region here at TIFF. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's screening of Children of Nature with special guest Fridrik Thor Fridriksson. To begin, we'd like to acknowledge that tonight's event is taking place in the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are very grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. On behalf of TIFF, I'd also like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa, and TIFF Cinematheque's public supporters, Ontario Creates, and the Canada Council for the Arts. Thanks as well to Classic FM Radio and Zoomer Radio, our program sponsors. Tonight's screening of Children of Nature is generously supported by the Icelandic Film Center and inspired by Iceland. As a charitable organization, we'd also like to thank our donors and members for making TIFF's year-round programming, educational, and community outreach initiatives possible. Fridrik's, this is the opening film, and I couldn't think of a better opening film for this series. This series is going to travel through Canada. It's going to the Cinematheque in Vancouver, the Cinematheque in Manitoba and Winnipeg, and also to the Regina Public Library. And it was, I think, very important to open not only with this film, but with this filmmaker. Fridrik Thridsson was, of course, born in Iceland. He's a self-taught filmmaker and the founder of the Icelandic Film Corporation. Many of his films have played TIFF, including Movie Days, Cold Fever, Devil's Island, Angels of the Universe, Falcons, Niceland, The Sunshine Boy, and Mamma Gógó. Horizon is his latest film, and that also played the festival as well. Children of Nature, the film you'll see tonight, is the only Icelandic feature to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. It is one of the first Icelandic films to abandon the city-country divide which characterized Icelandic films up until the 1980s. Fridrik Thridsson, of course, is responsible for many firsts. He was one of the first Icelandic filmmakers to utilize and pursue international funding. His films displayed a technical mastery and confidence which was singular in Iceland at the time. Many of them done with his longtime partner in crime, Eric Christensen. He was one of the first filmmakers to address the American occupation and its impact on the culture, both positively and negatively. His films are characterized by a capacity for curiosity and wonder, but his often sardonic humor gives them an edge films by lesser artists lack. The film academic, film scholar Birger Thormoller said that he seldom, possibly never questions the stories people tell him. Possibly that's because of Fridrik's own stories, which are, he's a legendary raconteur. I was reminded of this. I was talking to another filmmaker, Dagger Kari, whose film Noe Albanoe will play later in the series, and he told me the story about how he was editing in a German town, which I won't name, and he was having a very difficult time being there because he didn't speak any German, he couldn't read any German, and he couldn't figure out where the bank machines were, so he had no money for 2 weeks, and he was basically starving by the time he headed back home. And he got to the airport in Keflavik and Reykjavik, having had nothing to eat and kind of depressed. And he ran into Fridrik, and he asked Fridrik if he'd ever been to Town X in Germany. And Fridrik responded the way Fridrik always responds with his stories often have this sort of uplift. And when Dagger said, "Have you been to the Town X?" and waiting to unload about the awful time he had, Fridrik responded with, "That town, that's a great town. I met Tina Turner there." And I was reminded of this last night when we sat down to dinner, and I mentioned Gabriel Axel, the Danish filmmaker who made Babette's Feast in one of the first Viking movies, The Red Mantle, who sadly passed away recently. And I mentioned Gabriel Axel, and Fridrik responded with, "Yes, I saved his life once in Africa. He never stopped thanking me." Fridrik has a rather unique ability to roll with the punches. The first time I met him was when he came to TIFF to show Devil's Island, and he agreed to be part of the old Dialogues, a Talking with Pictures program we did where filmmakers introduce their favorite films or key films, and he wanted to show Milos Forman's Fireman's Ball. And he discovered the film when he was running the the film society at the university, and it was shipped to him by accident. There wasn't supposed to be Fireman's Ball, but he played it anyway, and it was great. His films had that sort of tough but wised up compassion. I'd call him Iceland's version of Jean Renoir, but I think he'd probably consider that damning him with faint praise. and I think he prefers John Ford anyway. One of the most singular aspect of Fridrik's films, I think, is that people. The one thing I learn over and over again from Fridrik's films is that people sometimes will let you down, but life never will. Please, it's always interesting in his films. Please join me in welcoming Fridrik Thor Fridriksson.
After a speech like this, I would ask you, Steve, when did I pass away? But the film you're about to see is much better than it was a few years ago, or from 91, because me and my cameraman, we had the opportunity to correct all our mistakes, because we were in a hurry to color grade the film, and it was shot on negative, of course, in Berlin, and because we had to premiere 31st of July 1991, because otherwise we would not be able to submit the film to the European Film Academy. And we had been working on the color correction for 120 hours. And we were not able, we said we were going to take train to Copenhagen and fly from Copenhagen, and we would land just half an hour before the premiere. So, but the train was completely full. There was not possibility to get any beds to sleep, and we definitely needed a lot of sleep. And then this was just after the wall went down, so I said, maybe I can bribe this guy on the train. And I asked him, can you get us a bed, 2 beds for 300 marks? And the guy said, yes, no problem. And then the train took off from Berlin. By the way, the town was Dortmund. and the train went slowly away. And then we saw 2 nuns standing there, and they didn't know what happened to them with the luggage, because he took the easy way out and threw 2 nuns out of their beds. And so we always felt that it was kind of an omen around this film afterwards, because of the bloody nuns. And of course we had the premiere, and when we came to the cinema, our soundman, who was a genius, he thought the projector, there was something wrong with the projector. So there was a delay, and everybody was there. And when I went up to the projection room, he had taken the projector completely to pieces on a wide, on the floor. And Jesus, this film, there is something wrong. And God forgive me because of this nun thing. But we managed to pull this projector together, and we made a great premiere. And but the day after, I was told that our film was not selected as a main film for European Film Award, because it was my second film, and it was only for some kind of discovery thing. And that was so much disappointment that a friend of mine invited me to the best salmon river the day after, and I caught, of course, the biggest 25-pounder in the river. So there was something good about this. But there was a committee selecting the films, and 2 of my good friends, later on, I didn't know them then. Dusan Magaja from ex-Yugoslavia and Emil Klimov, who made Comment C from Russia. They were in the committee, and Klimov was very, very drunk all the time, and he said, "They must be crazy, these people in Iceland, sending this film as a discovery and the other film is shit. I refuse to go until this film get one." It was called Felix then, and one nomination, and he finished his vodka bottle, and in the end they decided to follow his advice, and so Hilmar Örn Hilmarsson, the composer, got this Felix, this European Oscar, and the actress was nominated for one of 3 best actresses. And I think Ermin Klima, because of this, the film took off and was kind of a success. And was also the reason that we got some money to establish a film, so-called tiny film industry. But I will be here for Q&A, so, but maybe it's better that I speak for 2 hours, so. Okay. But this film has been digitalized, and so, like I said, we were able to correct all the mistakes we made because we were in a hurry because of this nonsense. Okay, see you.
Once again, please welcome Fridrik Thor Fridriksson. We have mics here for your questions, so just raise your hand and we can hear your question. Does anybody want to start? Yeah, at the back there, if we could just get the mic up.
First, I wanted to thank you for an absolutely stunning film. It's just beautiful. And I was really deeply moved when the archival footage comes up when she's remembering what things were like. And that looked to me like authentic archival footage, that it wasn't staged. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's from a documentary filmmaker, one of the pioneers of Icelandic cinema. And it's shot same location, obviously. The beautiful thing about it was that the main actress, she is brought up in a small village, not far away, and she knew some of these people personally because she was working in a shop when she was a child, and she remembers the faces in real life.
Was it Lofter? Who was the filmmaker?
No, Osvaldur Knudsen.
Oscar, okay. Thanks for the question. Next, at the back there, we'll just get the mic up.
I'll second that. Thank you for a beautiful, beautiful film. I'd love to hear more about the kinds of inspirations that came to you in creating the magical elements of the film. If with the jeep disappearing and people disappearing, if some of the inspiration is mythology or Icelandic cinema or other cinema. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it's a good story. But I met Billy Wilder in LA when I was nominated, and he loved this scene with the jeep disappearing. But he said, "But every producer would have fired me." The inspiration comes from our old literature mainly, from the sagas, and the script is co-written by Einar Már Gudmundsson, who is also a very well-known writer in Iceland, abroad also. And so it came just like I'm trying to remember the phrases I used when I was traveling around the world with this film. And I always said that supernatural stuff are very natural for me, because we believe that adventure takes place in reality, and that's why, you know, almost every Icelander has an experience with ghosts and something like yes, you guys call supernatural, but it's really natural.
The fogs are kind of like that, though. The fogs just show up and they're super dense, and there was no fog, and then 2 minutes later you can't see anything. So it's not, that is kind of realism, really. So next, yeah, back there. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, a question about the authenticity. It looked fantastic, very authentic. The Thorgeir shot his dog. Did you shoot a dog in real life? It looked incredibly real.
Oh, I mainly for hot dogs. No, of course, I think it says in Icelandic that no animal was hurt or something, but the dog was, we were offered to kill it because it was really sick dog. That's but I liked the way he walked, the dog, so that's why we choose this dog. But most of the actors and animals that appears in the films are dead now.
It's good to be updated. Next, anyone? We got the light. Sorry. Yeah, with Mike's over there. We can.
How have the reactions of Icelandic audiences changed from when you first screened it to, I saw it has a 2015 reissue or remastering? Have you detected any difference of how it's perceived by Icelandic audiences over the years?
Yeah, well, it has always been well received, but they haven't seen this version after we digitalized it. But it was almost like a world record, because it was in a cinema every day for more than a year. I think it was 1 year and 7 months, something like that. So people came very slowly to the film, and I remember the cinema had 2 screens we showed it in, and me and my cameraman went to see it in a smaller screen, because people were complaining about the projectionist was cutting off the heads of the characters, stuff like that. And we went up to investigate this, and then that has been in the cinema for more than a year, and we said, come on, this is okay, and so on. And then we wanted to go out, but we had to wait like half an hour, because the stairway was full of old people coming down, walking very slowly. But young people went to see it as well. So
You spent a long time on the. Do you want to talk about the first shot? Because I heard it wasn't the easiest thing to do. The sheep were not cooperative.
yeah, it's like from what Leonard Cohen said, you know, take me to the slaughterhouse, I will wait there with the lamb.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit, because the lamb doesn't want to wait with you. No, but after this question, I remember a nice story. At it was in Norway, of all places, and some punks, 3 punks, went to see the film because they thought it was something related to a film that I made called Rock in Reykjavik. And they were really shocked. They said, and I said always in Q&A that I wanted the feeling to be like you have been into your old grandmother funeral or something like that. And then I met those guys later when they got drunk, and then they told me that they hated the film when they said goodbye to each other. Very boring film. And then they all met. It's a small town called Haugesund where the festival is. And then 1 hour later, they all showed up in the old people's home in this small town. They were they were gonna visit their grandfathers and mothers.
We had somebody, yeah, if we can get a microphone down here, well, it's just we're also recording it, so. Oh, right here, if we could? Thank you.
Can you talk about Bruno Ganz in the film?
Yeah, he passed away. And no, it's like, it's just like saying hello. It's a quote to Wim Wenders. And he is the real godfather of Icelandic cinema because he came to the first festival that I was working with on, kind of created that festival, 78. And then I asked him to write a letter to members of the parliament to establish a film fund. And they did, but it's easy to create Frankenstein, but hard to control it. And it was hello and thank you, Wim. And then Bruno was telling me that people that saw the film in Switzerland, where he lived, and in Germany, that he was playing a ghost, because some people that went to see this film didn't see Himmel über Berlin. That's very strange. And so then I got this idea, the other angel from the film, Otto Sanders, who is also dead, he played the ghost in Movie Days, one of my films.
Yeah, right there.
So you made this film in 1991 when we were all young. What
and alive.
And certainly alive. What inspired you at that time to make this kind of film? Very beautiful.
Well, the film, the opening location is where my father used to be a farmer, and he was born 1898, and he did a lot of stuff, same stuff like my character does in the end of the film, before he passed away, and there was a lot of old, it's a long story, rather long. We were sent to the countryside, and I was sent to this farm, and I was working, mainly playing and fishing, and for 4 months. It was very nice tradition in Icelandic culture or society that young people were sent to the countryside, some to relatives like I was, and yeah, Movie Days is about that. If you try to see that film, I can that will answer your question, because all these people inspired me for doing this film, and I had this idea from the first written proof was from 76, and I wrote the first script alone, and it was very short script, and very little dialogue, and so it was in the fund for maybe 5 years before it was granted. And just like the actors, they came from theater. They have not been in many films before, and not in a big roles. And in the middle of shooting, they said, "We are not acting at all. We are just walking."
Yeah, we can get the mic down.
Yeah, hi. I just recently got to see Eldsmith, or the Firesmith, and it felt like there was some connection there. Is there any relation to, like you said just now that you wrote the script before? Were you thinking about that script when you did that documentary, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I was. If this film was a painting, this Eldsmith or Blacksmith was a sketch for it, because the main character in the blacksmith is an old blacksmith, and the only thing I showed the main actor, the man, that if he could imitate the walk, how the blacksmith was walking, and so I got a lot of stuff from that character that is also in the film. And the blacksmith influenced me also. He was producing the best alcohol I ever tasted.
Next. Blacksmith is a short doc from like the late 80s or mid 80s?
81 or 80.
Yeah. About a blacksmith who lives on his own.
10 years earlier than this, yeah.
Who's very inventive and jury rigs everything, and like it's, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask, why was Þorgeir not wearing his sneakers in the last part of the film?
I got this question so many times, but it's usually put, why is he not having any socks on?
Does it have anything to do with Paul McCartney?
No, it has to do with my father. He did this before he passed away. He walked on the lava before to get probably closer to the land that he loved or something like that. I think it was very much like Native Americans would do.
Okay, we can do one or two more. Anyone? Yeah, if we just get the mic down. And then we'll get the question up there. Yeah.
I feel like you have a story for every occasion, so I'm wondering if you have any stories from being nominated for an Oscar.
Of course I have. The best one is that you want to hear the 10 good stories from this occasion. First, my favorite story is that during the Oscar ceremony, you're never allowed to have empty seats. And we were 4 together, and it's a very boring ceremony, so you had to go to a bar that was downstairs. But then four stand-in comes running in to sit in your seats. And of course they were all Eskimos, just because they had heard about Björk.
Any more stories? Do you want? We don't. Maybe 2, 3? No. Okay. Right there.
Hi. Well, thank you very much for your beautiful movie, and I just I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you in the last part with the angel. I guess you have seen Wings of Desire with the same actor, and for a moment I was like, wow, it's like a parallel story of Wing of Desire. I wanted to ask you if you thought in that relation of the same actor as an angel or not. And then as well, in the last shoots, I really remember The Stalker from Tarkovsky. I don't know if you have felt inspired by his films. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I of course I was very inspired by Tarkovsky. And I said hello to Tarkovsky in this film as well, and also to Kieślowski. And the greatest honor I got in my life as a filmmaker was to plant a tree in his garden, Tarkovsky garden in Russia. And the other director who did it was another director I admire a lot, who also passed away from Greece.
Good to be updated. Angelopoulos? Yeah.
Yeah, Theo Angelopoulos. And so it's, it is, and he came to Iceland also, and I met him. And I'm kind of like a groupie. The filmmakers I loved in my life, I always have tried to meet them or invite them to Iceland. And, it's related to how I started filmmaking, was just to run a film club and show other works.
Okay, we can do one last question. Anyone? Someone? Last chance? All right, here, right here.
Can you comment on the naked woman?
It's not awake, it's a ghost, darling. And we showed the film recently in China and television, and she was cut out.
Ghost-like.
So maybe she never existed. Was she in this?
Okay, that's all of that. I'm afraid we do have to wrap it up, but thank you guys so much for coming. Hope to see you on the weekend. We have 2 more films screening this weekend. Tomorrow at 3:15, we're going to show Christine Johannesdottir's film As in Heaven, which is one of the most beautiful films ever made in Iceland, and Christine will be there for the screening. And on Sunday evening at 7:15, we're going to show one of the funniest comedies to come out of Iceland, Robert Douglas's Icelandic Dream. Really important for future MBAs to see this film. So it's about a young businessman or entrepreneur, I guess is the term. But anyway, I hope to see you guys out for it. And thanks for coming. And thank you, Fridrik.